Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Star Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
Get ready for this.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to the Bebe Means Business Show. As always, I'm your host, Bebe Clement, and I'm rearing to go with another program. First of all, I want to thank everybody who tuned in last week to our episode of Monetizing Your Network, and the repeat shows for that and for every other show that we have had in the past. You can find them on YouTube, on the Bebe Means Business Show YouTube channel. All the past episodes are on there. Okay, so I also want to thank you for all your feedback and everything in relation to the show. Thank you very, very much. I want to thank also your commitment to the program, because we have been on an upward trajectory in relation to the numbers or the figures of the people that watch the program or listening to the program. And a couple of weeks ago, we celebrated 11,000 listeners. 11,000 listeners. So I really want to say thank you so much for your commitment to the show and to the brand. Keep listening, keep telling other people. Thank you for all the feedback that comes back. Thank you for voting the show that you like the best. It really helps us carve the program to suit you best and to get all the information and help that you need. Now, I know this is a show with a global listenership, but no matter where you are in the world, things are beginning to look increasingly dire from an economic point of view. I mean, there's no escaping that. There's no fine-tuning that. That is the reality. We in the UK, in particular, where I am based, are being daily bombarded with warnings of coming doom and gloom. And I want to take a few minutes to see where we are in the UK, not to scare you, honestly, not to scare you, but to prepare you. It's important that you are prepared for what is coming in the very near future, so that you can get your house in order and not play games with your financial future. Not play games. Okay. So regular listeners will know that part of the mission of this program is also to improve our financial literacy. And part of that is understanding the lingo or the language surrounding money. The lingo or the language surrounding money. Okay, we have a couple of guests online today, so we're going to come to them in a minute. But can I just ask the guests to mute themselves, because there's some interference coming in. Thank you. Okay. So, so I want to just, show you a bit of the language of the financial circumstances in which we are in, so that when you hear this language, you know what this means, and it doesn't go over your head, because it has an impact for your life and for my life. So, for those of you who have never heard this term before, and I know a lot of you have, we are in the time of what economists have coined a phrase called VUCA. And VUCA mainly stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. I'm going to say that again. There's a term coined by economists called VUCA, and it stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Now, the reason why I raise that is because it is important for you to know that the market has changed. Everything is different. Post-COVID, everything is different. There's so much volatility such that they can no longer predict what is going to happen. When previously economists would say, okay, for the next 5 years or for the next 10 years, this is what is going to happen. That's pretty much gone out the window, because the markets are just so volatile and uncertain now, and complex. Because there's so many unforeseen factors that are now affecting economies that you just can no longer predict. So, for instance, for a very simple example, is the Russian invasion of Ukraine. This was not foreseen, and it wasn't factored in when they were making their predictions, and especially the kind of effect that it has had on us was not predictable. So it's important that you get to terms with those kind of That's that kind of lingo, so that you know exactly what they're talking about when you hear it on the news or you're reading a magazine or whatever. So we in UK are facing increasing runaway energy prices, and it is predicted that the average UK home will be spending between £3,000 and £4,000 next year on energy bills. Now, when you consider that the average annual UK income is about £31,400, add to that the UK CPI is currently at a 40-year high of 10.1%. We have never had inflation like this in recent years, 10.1%. And I think it's about 8% in the US. So the UK is not standing alone in this. In the US, it's about 18%. It's about 8%. And in Nigeria, don't even get me started. It's some ridiculous amount. I think it's about 30% at the moment, but some ridiculous amount. So for those of you who don't know what the CPI is, I'm going to do a very quick run through so that, again, when you hear it on the news, you know what they're talking about and the effect that it has on your life, because it's important that you know. So a CPI is like a measure of inflation. It's one of the indicators of inflation. And this is how it works. So every month, the government will take a measure of a basket of things that you and I need to survive. Not to have a great life, not to live it up, not to have a big, a fanciful life, just to keep breathing, just to keep surviving. So for instance, they might say, Bebe lives in a one-bedroom flat in South London, and she pays £800 for that flat. So they write down cost of flat in South London, cost of one-bedroom flat in South London, £800. And then they say, when Bebe wakes up in the morning, she goes downstairs and she gets herself with butter and jam. So they will write down the cost of a loaf of bread. They write down the cost of jam. They write down the cost of butter. So you kind of get the idea. It's just a basket full of basic things that you and I need to survive. And then they look at how much it costs to live during that period. So the way it works, like the figures for September, when they release them, are actually from August last year to August this year. So it gives you an overview of how much it costs to live. Okay, and then they release the figures. So now, why is that important for you? And I need to explain that. It's really important. What that means in real terms, so let's say you're an employee and you're a salary earner. What that means in real terms is if for instance, your salary was $30,000 and you haven't had a salary increase, which most people have not had. You haven't had a salary increase. And they say the CPI is 10%. What they're saying is it costs 10% more today to live than it did this time last year. So let's say it costs £1 to buy a loaf of bread last year. That same loaf of bread will probably cost about £1.10 today. Now, again, what is the significance of that for you? It means that your salary that is static and you've not had any salary increase, and so this is your salary. Let's say this is your salary, and then the CPI is up here, 10%. You are already in a deficit, and you haven't even made a purchase. You haven't done anything. You are already in a deficit. So for those of you who are wondering, I don't understand it. I get my salary on the 1st, and by the 5th, it's all gone, and I can't even point to what I've bought. That is by design. It's not by default. Although some of us are consumers, we're living beyond our means. But even that aside, even before you buy anything, the system is stacked against you. This is what I need you to get. The system is stacked against you. That is why employees do not do well in a capitalist society. Irrespective of their buying habits or their spending habits, they don't do well because the system is stacked against you. Now, again, in the UK, a number of small businesses are already saying, listen, if energy prices go up, we're just going to shut shop because right now we're already struggling. There is no way we can survive. And we know that when this kind of thing starts to happen, the first people that get thrown under the bus are employees. That's the truth. They're employees. I mean, look at energy prices. The energy prices have gone up like crazy. Yet Shell is declaring a record profit of 11.5 billion. Record profit. And their directors and their shareholders are all getting paid mega premiums and, salaries and all the rest. Now we can moan, and personally I don't begrudge them, to be honest, because I understand how a capitalist system works. And we can moan and say, oh, it shouldn't be so and everything like that. But I think it's in our best interest, rather than look at how the world should be, to get to grips with how the world actually is and to make amends accordingly. So, what are we going to do? Because governments are also going to be limited in the help that they can offer. They're already still reeling from the amount of help that they offered during COVID that they couldn't foresee and they didn't budget for. So when things go through the roof this time next year, or as we go along, the help from government is going to be very limited, ladies and gentlemen. Whether we like it or not, the help from government is going to be very limited. So listen, the bad news is the cavalry is not coming. That's the bottom line. Get to grips with it. The cavalry is not coming. You are your own rescue. So what are you going to do? That is the question. If you've made a decision, I am not going to sink. Thank you, great. But what are you going to do? And those of you who are of the faith, who like to bury your head in the ground and say, oh, God will provide. Yes, that's all wonderful. We know that he provides. But even the Bible says faith without works is dead. So what are you going to do? Now, one of the things that you can do is begin to develop different income streams. And so I thought I'd do a show today again on a kind of one of the income streams that you can develop. And so we're going to be looking at property today. We're going to be looking at property. And it gives me great joy to welcome back to the show two of our returnee guests, two very special women who have built up amazing property portfolios. And they're going to be talking to us not only about how they did it, but introducing to us a new way of investing in property. Because you know how it is. A lot of us think, oh my God, I'm already struggling financially. I don't have a few $100,000 to invest in property. Hold your horses, there's good news coming. They're going to show us that you don't have to break the bank to invest in property now. There are lots of ways in which you can do it. There's one in particular called fractional investment that they're going to speak about, and that's going to help you. So, without further ado, I'm going to welcome back Bimbola Osage and Sandra Ramsey-Nicole. Ladies, you are welcome back to the show.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having us. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Okay. Good afternoon. All right. So, what I'd like you to do for those of our listeners who haven't met you, do a quick intro. So, Bimbola, can you go first? Give us a quick background as to how you got into property and where you're at now.
Cool, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bimbola Banjo Osage. I am a full-time property investor, developer, trainer, coach, mentor, and everything property. In fact, I actually call myself a property entrepreneur. So I started my property journey so many years, about 17 years ago when I bought my first property. But just like most people, it was just a place to live at the time. But then over time, I started to get financially educated and started to look more into how to create wealth, and properties seemed for me as the top of that chain of how to create wealth. So I started in property alongside my full-time job. So it was something I did on the side, and every little money I had, I would invest. My husband and I would invest in the property. Over the years, I realized how important it was to create that passive income. I started to see the benefits of having that, newly married, raising a young family, having such big goals for my life. So I literally started to work my way out of my job, which, by the way, was a really good, high-paying job. It was something that I actually enjoyed doing, but I knew that there was more that property could give me. 4 years ago, I eventually left the rat race, which I'm really excited about, and I've been doing property full-time. So over the last 4 years, I do this full-time, and not only am I now investing in property, I'm actually actively getting people within our community to see the benefits of creating wealth through properties, encouraging people to own a piece of the land. And I think for me, it's if you work so hard in a country, you pay taxes, you contribute to the well-being and welfare of that country, you should own a piece of that land. So that's been my my mission, my passion. And, you know, like Bebe said, you don't have to have loads and loads and loads of money to get into property. There's so many ways to get into property with just a little bit of money. So today, is, you know, that's one of the things I'll be looking to discuss. I consider myself the JV queen, joint venture queen, and I'll share a little bit more about that as we go along. But yeah, that's me, really. I'm so happy to be here to share.
Thank you so much, Bebe. And what is the state of your, if you don't mind sharing, what is this, would you say is the state of your property portfolio at the moment? What are we looking at?
Yes, so over the years, built a sizable portfolio over the 17 years I've been investing. And I would say currently we're looking at about 7 million in terms of portfolio size. And that's a mixture of family-led, HMO, commercial conversion, the JVs that I mentioned. So it's a whole range of different things within the property space.
Okay, so I think it would be fair to say, you done good, girl. Okay, Sandra, Ramsey, Nicole, welcome back to the show. Could you just share a little bit about your journey in regards to property?
Oh, hello. Thanks, Bebe. Thanks for having me on. And hello, everybody. Well, property, I got started in property when I got made redundant for my first job, and got a lump sum, and I suddenly thought, oh, great to buy property. So obviously went off shopping. And I remember coming across a house, a 3-bed house, or a tiny studio flat in Marble Arch. And I decided to go for the house in Mitcham as opposed to the studio flat in Marble Arch. And that started my property journey. So I bought that property and then obviously decided I was going to rent a room out, which brought me income. Then obviously released equity and bought further properties. And I've been doing that ever since. Not a full-time property investor, part-time property investor, because I run my own education business. Okay,
thank you very much. Okay, ladies, let's jump right into it. Can I just say that the listenership is global, so watch your terms, because some of us, you know, we don't know what HMO is and those kind of things. So if you're going to use those kind of terms, could you just explain to our listeners what those mean? Thank you, ladies. Okay, so let's jump right into it. I need to know, what is fractional property ownership? Because you know how it is. People are deterred. They're so deterred. They think, oh, if I'm going to get into property, I don't have the money. What am I going to do? Blah, blah, blah. I want to know about this fractional property ownership. What is it?
Okay, well, fractional property ownership is quite a simple concept. It's one where you co-own a property with other people. Now, when you think about it, a lot of people are barred from, you know, the whole challenge of getting onto the property market, and they think, you know, I haven't got 50,000, I haven't got 100,000. And really what this allows you to do is get into the property market by co-owning a property, owning a fraction of that property with other people. So people, the first thing that people think about is, you know, sort of, oh, I own it with other people. Okay, how do you sort of make money? Well, the model we work, Bebe and I do, the model we've got is where you own it, you own the property, but you also get rental income from it. So you get rental income every year, every month from the property, and you also get an opportunity to use that property. So you get a week's stay in the property. So you own a property, you part own a property, get a week's stay, and also get some income from it.
Okay. So, all right. So let me just make sure that I'm understanding. So, I wouldn't own the property outright. I would own it alongside a group of other people. Is that correct?
That's right, yes.
Okay. So as my listeners know, we're going to be focusing a little bit on the opportunities in Spain in a minute, and I know that you're going to explain why. So how would this work? So let's say there was a particular property we wanted to invest in Spain, and it was 200,000. How much would I need to put on the table?
So, for example, if we were going to split that in 10, we could possibly say we're looking for 10 investors. We're looking for 10 people to bring £20,000. Now, that would then allow you to own a share of that property. And a lot of people sometimes think about, oh, no, it must be a timeshare. And I'd like to make this distinction. It is not a timeshare. With a timeshare, you actually buy time to use the property. You buy the right to use the property for 2 weeks a year, 4 weeks a year, whatever period of time. And you have that right for sort of 20 years to 90 years. This is different in the sense that you actually own the property. Right. So this property belongs to you, you own only a share of the property. And the fantastic thing about that is you share all the benefits of owning a property and you share the risks.
Okay, so okay, again, let me just make sure that I'm understanding this. So let's say I and 9 of my friends put together 20K each. We could buy a property.
Yes.
We'd all own a share of it.
That's right.
And then the property would be let out.
That's right.
And we would receive a portion of the rent. And for how long does this last? So do we agree beforehand how long this is going to last? Is it like 5 years, 10 years? How long does it last?
Yeah, so good. What Bimba and I do is we have an agreement where it's a 5-year period. Everyone who invests comes in for a 5-year fixed period. At the end of the 5 years, we then decide, okay, the 5 years up, we can sell the property. And the great thing about it is because you own the property, you also benefit from the capital growth. So if we buy the property at 200,000 and when we sell it, it's 300,000, everybody walks away with a tenth of their share. So you benefit from the capital growth, which you don't with timeshares, because you're just buying the right to use from a timeshare owner to use the property. You may also have heard of ownerships where you sort of own a hotel room, for example. You've got the Marriott that do that. You've got a hotel room and you buy a hotel room or you own a hotel room and then you let it out and you get some income. This is one step better, much better, in the sense that you own the whole home, be it a 2-bedroom flat, for example, or a 3-bed flat, whatever property it is, and you also own the equity on that property. You get the advantage of the equity in 5 years' time on that property.
All right, for those that don't know, what is equity?
Well, equity is basically the amount you've built up over time, the profit, the benefit. So if you buy a property today at 200,000 and you sell it in a year's time, or in a year's time it's worth 300,000, you've built up equity of 100,000. So that's the difference between the cost of the property and what the potential value is at a time in the future.
Okay, all right. Okay, so the main difference between this and timeshare is, one, timeshare you don't even actually own anything. You're just buying literally the time to spend there. But here, there's not only capital gains,
That's right.
but also rental gains as well, because you get money from the amount of rent that you get. You get that as well.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And I would assume that, Bimba, if you could answer this, am I correct in understanding that model has got to mitigate some kind of risk for you? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, so just in order for me to answer that question, I want to just go back to why we think fractional ownership is actually a good idea, because I think it's good to go back to the basics, right? Generally, when it comes to ownership, ideally everybody wants to own everything. You want to buy something, you want to make sure that you own 100% of it. And as we say, owning 100% of nothing as opposed to 10% of something, 10% of
Yes.
better. So the thing, one of the issues or the challenges that people have when it comes to investing generally, obviously, number one is the risk element. We're hearing in the news, we're hearing in the media every day about how things are going up, going down, it's going to crash, it's not going to crash. So of course, it's put a bit of fear in someone that's starting or someone that is very precious about where to put their money as to actually going into it. When you go into fractional ownership, or the idea of it is that you are sharing the risk with other people. You are also sharing the profits with other people. You're actually putting resources together. How many times are people being held back because they don't have enough money to go into any good investment? And most of the if you're sitting down waiting to gather funds, what tends to happen is the goalpost moves. If today you need 50K, next week you're going to need 55K. So by the time you're ready for 50K, the goalpost has moved. So why don't you just get into it now? It's also a way to stop you procrastinating, procrastinating from actually taking the step. It's the power of leveraging with other people. If you're investing anything with somebody else, you're investing because either they have the money, they have the time, the resources, the knowledge. So this thing is a whole shift of mindset. And that's why we're so passionate about telling people about this. We're just regular or experienced investors who like to share what we know with other people. So when you go into this, when you're investing with other people, you're sharing the risk, you're sharing the profit, you're able to take action today. You're putting resources together, you're leveraging the power of leverage. You are also in a position to own something that on a good day you probably wouldn't be able to own. The other day we had this talk about this whole concept, and someone came back and said, do you know what, I never actually thought I could even get as close to thinking about owning a home in Spain. And this is what this sort of thing gets you, because you're sitting now not really necessarily thinking about this amazing opportunity, but actually you can get into this amazing opportunity if you're willing to do it with other people. So yeah, fractional ownership, joint venture, which is another term for it. Shared ownership, it's the way forward. It's an absolute must. I actually say it's the way forward. We have other races or other communities that do this on a day-to-day basis, and they're good for it. The Jewish community, the Asian community, they bring and pull their resources together, and they do so much, with the time and within their community. And I think it's time that we all emulate the good thing that comes out of such strategy of owning a property.
I couldn't have said it better. And for those of you who listen to this program regularly, the whole issue of collaboration, I know is something that it's kind of foreign to our community. I don't understand why. But guys, if we are going to make any progress, collaboration is the way forward in whatever sphere. It is the way forward. And particularly in property, where you've heard that, what is stopping you from owning something, that hurdle is now, it's now crossable. You can now jump that hurdle. And I love what you said about what is the point of owning 100% of nothing when you can own 10% of something that is tangible and makes sense, and I can pass down to my children. Most importantly, I can pass down to my children. And again, for those of you who listen to this program a lot, I tend to think generationally. You've got to think generationally when it comes to wealth creation. It's not just about you living in a nicer house or buying a better car. It's about what are my children's children going to eat? What are they going to eat? I really want my children to say, thank God for grandma. That's my grandchildren. That's what I want them to say, thank God for grandma. So we mind shifts. We really have to have a mind shift that we have to work together. There's no getting around it. We have to work together. And not everybody is a thief. Not everybody's going to run off with your money. So get past that as well. I'm not trying to say there's no risk involved. I'm not saying that at all, but not everybody is a thief. Some people have integrity, and I'd like to think that the people that I work with have integrity. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to come back because, as you know, we have a global listenership. And we're talking about Spain, and I need to let my people know whether you can be sitting in Ghana and take advantage of this, and you can be sitting in Nigeria and take advantage of this, or is this just for people in Europe? So we're going to come back and have you answer that question, but we're going to take a quick break. For those of you who are regular listeners, you know that this is a live show, and so if you have any views or any questions that you want to ask Sandra or Bimbala, listen, guys, don't keep quiet. This is the time to do it. If you are joining us from Facebook, just put something in the chat. We'll get it during the break, and they will answer all your questions. Twitter handle is @StarRadioUK. That's @StarRadioUK. Or you can text or WhatsApp us on 07539 661 That number again, 07539 661 744. Indeed, email us at info@StarRadioUK, and we will have a look at your questions, and we will discuss them when we come back. Don't go away.
Hi everyone, it's your girl Bebe Clement, the author of How to Go from Employee to Entrepreneur, and the host of your weekly business show, Bebe Means Business, the show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business, but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Star Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
Get ready for this.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are just joining us, you are welcome once again to the Bebe Means Business Show, and I'm your host, Bebe Clement. And today, I have an all-female cast. Sisters are doing it for themselves. So I've got two guests on the show, Sandra Rams Nicole and Bimbala Osage, and they are property investors, property entrepreneurs, as Bimbala likes to be called, and they've made a success of it, and they're just showing us how we too can have a slice of the cake. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, it is no longer out of your reach, not out of your realm of imagination to own property. And we're focusing today on fractional property investment, and we're looking at Spain. So, ladies, as I said just before we ended, we have a global listenership. I need to know, and my listeners need to know, can we be in Nigeria or Ghana and take advantage of this, or do you have to be in the West?
You can be anywhere. You can be anywhere in the world to take advantage of this. The concept that we're looking at, the investment opportunity that we're considering at this stage is actually a cash purchase. So it doesn't really matter. We're not getting a mortgage. There's no restrictions to accessing finance and so on and so forth. So you could literally be anywhere in the world and you can invest in this. Very doable, very plausible. The whole structure is we set up a limited company and every investor becomes a shareholder. So I don't see any restriction to be a shareholder in any country, just like you would, anyone in the world can buy an Amazon share. It's a similar concept.
I like that. I'm glad you said that you can be a shareholder of any company in the world, doesn't matter where you are. So again, a lot of things that are limiting us, ladies, is purely mindset issues. Oh, I'm going to be owner of a property that I've never seen. You've never been to Apple. Most of us have never been to Apple. But we're shareholders. Doesn't stop the fact or change the fact that we are shareholders. Now listen, this is a double whammy here. I'm glad you said that you're not just an owner of property, you're also a shareholder. So that two different income streams going on here, two different concepts going on here, two for the price of one. So yes, great opportunity. So you don't, it doesn't matter where you are, ladies and gentlemen, in the world, you can take advantage of this. Now, I want to address this to Sandra, because I know, Sandra, you are based in Spain. You've built up a good property portfolio in Spain. Now, what's the downside of investing in Spain? Because I sometimes have people say to me, oh, there have been some Spanish investment opportunities and they've gone belly up and I'm a bit weary. What would you say to that? And that's true. So tell us why that came about and where we are now.
Okay, like any investment, there are pros and cons, okay? The Spanish market, people may have heard stories about Spanish properties, they've tried to invest many, many years ago. We all know that we had the world financial crisis way back in 2008, between 2008 2014, it was a world crisis. What was particular about Spain was that a lot of money was being pumped into the Spanish economy, lots of construction taking place, lots of property developers were building properties and so on. It was so easy to get a mortgage. The same thing applied to the US. It was really easy. All you had to do was say, yes, I can afford it, and you'd get a mortgage. So a lot of people went into the Spanish market, and then you had the banking crisis. You had too much money coming into the economy, that then inflation, the banks crashed, they realized they were lending just recklessly, and the whole economy, the whole world was in a financial crisis. It affected Spain, it affected America, it affected lots of different countries. Now, the thing about that is some people have sort of said, right, that's it, I'm not touching Spain. But like Warren Buffett says all the time, the time to go into an investment is when people are running away from it, not when everyone's going into it. Now, yeah. I moved to Spain about 4 years ago, and I've lived there. I've invested in quite a few properties since I've been there. And the reason is I've gotten there and suddenly realized, wow, I'm sitting in a world of opportunity. There are lots of opportunities there. The entry capital cost to get into the property market in Spain is a lot lower than the UK. So in a short period of time, I've acquired a portfolio there and suddenly thought, why aren't other people doing this? So our interest, and Bebe and I decided to collaborate on this venture because I sort of thought, there must be other people that like to get in the market. I'd like to see people that look like me investing like I'm investing in that country. So with any property investment, be it in the UK, be it in Spain, if you buy at a high price and you sell low, you lose money. It's no different in Spain. But what's fantastic about Spain is that you've got very good rental yields. We all know that Spain, I mean, you think about the top 100 companies in the world, 70 of them do have a branch in Spain. Spain's known for its logistics, its infrastructure, it's extremely popular. We all know that the Brits love Spain. People go to Spain to retire. We've got over 1 million plus Brits in Spain. It's extremely attractive because of the weather. We're all like the sunshine. It's got about 3,000 hours of sunshine every year. The cost of living is much lower. When I look at my bills, when I look at how much it costs me to actually be in Spain, it's a lot lower than if I lived in the UK. Everything's a lot cheaper. So that attracts a lot of people attracts tourists from Belgium, from the rest of Europe, Russians, you name it, they all come to Spain. And one of the area we're looking at, the area Bebe and I are looking at investing is Murcia. Murcia, the Spanish actually pronounce it Murcia, but the Brits will say Murcia. Murcia's actually got the highest rental yield in Spain, the highest rental yield. So why not invest?
Why not indeed, is the question. Why not indeed? I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and she made a very valid point, actually, and this is mainly for the black community in the UK. She was saying that a lot of us are getting on a bit, and we're thinking about retirement. And unfortunately, because of a lot of the uncertainties back in Africa, prior to what we previously planned, a lot of us are not going to be able to go back to Africa. But, like you also said about the weather, but we miss the weather. So Spain is actually quite a good alternative because, if you're based in the UK or in other parts of Europe, it's not that far to get to, so you can still see the children, you can still see the grandchildren, that kind of thing. They can still come and visit you, as opposed to if you're back in Africa. And there's nothing wrong with going back to Africa. I'm not trying to mess up anybody's economy, but I'm just saying that a lot less people are considering going back than they were maybe 10, 15 years ago. But this is an alternative. This is a good alternative, especially if you have like health issues like arthritis and things, rheumatism, that kind of thing, that require a warm climate. Then yes, I think this is a good alternative. Now that's Spain. So I think one of the things for me is that you've done it. So you've made some of the mistakes that if I was doing it alone, I would potentially make. So you've made some of those mistakes. You've ironed out the kinks, so to speak, in the process. And so that gives me that would give me a bit more confidence that you know what you're doing. You're not just, gathering people. You know what you're doing, and you've been there, you've done that. Another thing I want to say that's slightly aside from this is, and I say this for the benefit of our listeners, is again, the matter of collaboration. The matter of collaboration. Now, these are two entrepreneurs, two property investment entrepreneurs who are totally independent of each other, but looked at what they do and thought, we are stronger together, we are more powerful together, we can provide more opportunities for our people if we work together. And I really need for my listeners to get this. Whatever field of business that you are in, whatever sphere of business you are in, you've got to start looking around for people that can enhance your business and you can enhance theirs, and start working with them. That is how we're going to make progress. The day of each one doing it to death on their own, in their own corner of the world, that day is gone, ladies and gentlemen. And if you are still doing that, you are going to get wiped out. You are not going to be able to survive. Look for who you can collaborate with, that has integrity, that you want to put your name to, that you can join forces and do better financial gain. Have access, now they have access to each other's client base, which they probably wouldn't have had before, and they can go further. So I need you to start thinking like that. Okay, that was an aside. Bimbola, I know you have an investment club in the UK, because no matter what we say, some people will think, no, I'm not going to go to Spain, that kind of thing. I'm a bit weary, and that's fine. It's not for everyone, we accept that. But I know that you have an investment club in the UK, and I have done some work with you previously. Can you tell us a little bit about your investment club in the UK and how our listeners can take advantage?
Yes. So for those that don't want to go to Spain and those that do want to go to Spain, there is also an option in the UK. And actually, even though it's an option in the UK, we also have members that are actually not based in the UK. So this is another opportunity that is open to anyone wherever they are in the world. But basically, it's the idea of us coming together, running an investment club. And the entry cost is £10,000. So in my introduction, I talked about how over the years I've been helping people get on the property ladder using the fractional ownership model. And sometimes people don't necessarily have the 20K, the 30K, the 40K to do those types of deal. But I find that most people have at least £10,000. So the idea was everyone with £10,000 minimum will come together, we'll put the money in the big pot. And out of that big pot, we then use that money to invest in property. So we're buying properties and flipping them for a profit. We're loaning each other money to invest into bigger opportunities. But the idea is the investment club, and it's called BOOB. be our own bank. And it's very important, and I want to repeat that. It is be our own bank. We are literally taking matters into our own hands. Last year, or was it 2 years ago, there was this whole movement about Black Lives Matter. And Black lives do matter, but do you realize that Black lives matter because Black money matters too? So we need to start to think and build up the Black economy. So the whole idea of be our own bank is that as Black people, we come together, 10,000 from this person, 10,000 from that person. Before you know, we've built ourselves 500,000, 650, 750, a million. Then we have a big pot of money. We can invest in opportunities that on a good day we probably wouldn't be able to. We can actually loan money to other investors within our community to build their own portfolio. We can, buy and sell. We can literally do anything that we couldn't do as a community. So that's what the investment club is. We're actually going into our third year now. So we've started really well and it's been going quite well. And the idea is that you bring in your £10,000 minimum, invest it for a year. So it's a 12 months, it's a rolling 12 months. So you can actually choose to just do it for the 12 months and then come out. But basically within that 12-month period, we buy, sell, do whatever we need to do to make money legitimately, legally, do our accounting at the end of the year, pay our corporation tax liability, and then the profit is then split amongst the members based on how much you've contributed. And if somebody wants to leave in the first year, they're happy to. If they want to carry on into the next year, then the cycle begins as well. Another thing that we're very big on as well is actually helping the people within the community, especially the first-time buyers, to get on the property ladder. So it's one thing to be investing in properties, another thing to make sure that every single member of the club owns their own home, because that is so important. The biggest challenge, I say to the group, your challenge can no longer be funds. You can never tell me if you're part of this investment club that you don't have money to invest or you don't have money to buy your own property. We have the money. Let's do something about it. So yeah, we invite as many people to join the club. We're opening up again beginning of September. So we invite as many people to come and join the club. It's £10,000. We would have a seminar post this to go through the numbers, go through the pros and cons, the structure, and the timeline. But the idea really is come in, £10,000, and let's build wealth. Let's make our money work hard for you. The last thing to say is the way that I want us to think about is if you had £10,000 right now, the only thing that you could possibly buy is a car. Like the only major stuff you can buy is a car or furniture. But those things are depreciating assets. They don't appreciate. They're never going to give you any money in return. If you put £10,000 in your savings account, oh gosh, you don't even want to do that. With the interest rate rise, you're going to lose money. So why don't you bring your £10,000 and let it work as hard as it can work for you, so that you can then begin to do other and better things. And it's also an opportunity to network as well. It's a group of like-minded people who are going somewhere that have a financial goal, and let's work together to make something out for ourselves and definitely for the generations after us.
Wow. Amazing. On behalf of our community, I actually want to say thank you, because sadly, there's not a lot of people who are thinking that way. We tend to be quite insular, but it really gladdens me to see that you are thinking about how many people can I take with me, if you know what I mean. How many people can I take with me? This is really, really important, and I want to thank you on behalf of our community for giving us that kind of opportunity. Again, just like you said, all these other things that are depreciating value. I was reading somewhere a couple of years ago that if you buy a new car and you drive it to the end of the street and you turn around and you try and sell it back to the person that sold it to you, he will offer you 25% less than what you just paid for it. That is the rate of depreciation. It is that rapid. So why would you do that when you can invest that money in something that is going to yield a financial result for you? Again, we need to think about our children as well. It's not just about us, but what are we leaving for our children? The first-time buyer thing is important because, as you well know, in the UK, this is probably the first generation that are finding it almost impossible to get on the property ladder. So many of our kids are still in their little bedroom in our homes because they can't get on the property ladder. Despite the nice jobs that they've got, they still can't afford to get on the property ladder. So this is a way in which you can give your child a leg up. to help them to get out there. This is a way in which you can do it without breaking the bank. So thanks again for that. Okay, so one of the things that we do on this show is we have a section called the Book Corner. And what I do in the Book Corner is I review a book and then I just make some comments about what I've read in that book. So because we're talking about property, I'm actually going to be reading from my book, How to Go From Employee to Entrepreneur, because there's actually a chapter on property in that book. And for those of you who have not seen this book, can I encourage you to either go to my website, bbclement.com, and get the book. It's $12.99. There has never been a time, ladies and gentlemen, where this book is needed more. Never been a time than now, because of everything that's going on around us. So I'm going to read some of the sections in this book, and what I'd like you to do, ladies, is to comment. Just jump in whenever you have a comment that you want to make in relation to some of the things that I say. Is that okay? Are we good for that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, ladies. Okay. So I say on page 25, under the section of property ownership, in order to show how important ownership is in a capitalist society, let's have a look at a concept that we can all relate to, property ownership. We know that different levels of ownership afford us different levels of rights and power, and indeed opportunity. One of the best ways in which to own property is to own a freehold with a mortgage on it. Now, could somebody explain to us what is a freehold?
So a freehold is you being able to own the property and the land on which the property sits on. So that's the freehold. You have a freehold of the entire thing, the property and the land. And the opposite of that is the leasehold, which means you own the building, but you don't actually own the land. You're leasing the land for the duration of the time that your building is on it. But of course, there are ways in which you can continue to renew that lease so that you don't get to a point where the freeholder says, I want my land, but take your property off my land. Yes, so you're either a freeholder or a leaseholder. Leaseholder specific to flats and apartments, whereas maisonettes, for those in the UK, and freehold are typically houses. I hope that's clear.
Okay, so for someone who is like a property virgin, if I was going to invest in property, would you suggest that as much as possible I should be looking at freehold?
I would say either of the two works. It just depends on people's personal goals. Because if you want to live in the city, for example, most cities have a lot of apartments, less houses, and most apartments are leasehold. So if you want to live in the city and that's all there is, then yes, of course, go get yourself a lease. As long as there's enough length on the lease, the charges are they're affordable. So this is where you need your lawyer to help you with all the legals. Then yes, of course, go for it. And sometimes leasehold properties are easier, quicker to rent out. But on the other hand, if you want a freehold, you want a house, it's literally a personal preference. Obviously, if you have a family and you want more space for your children, you typically would get that in a house with a garden, which is a freehold. So I don't think there's a right or wrong. It's just personal preference, and you need to know what the legals are, either freehold or leasehold, even before you actually get into it. So that's what you need as a solicitor for that.
Okay, that's kind of taking me to something else I was going to read here, but there's no need to read it now because it's out there. What is the difference? I've seen some leases of 999 years. Is that equivalent to a freehold, Sandra?
That's just a very long lease. It will seem like a freehold because it's 999 years, so it's literally perpetually several lifetimes over. But yes, it's a very, very long lease. But a lot of leases these days, a lot of new builds, am I right, Bimbo? A lot of new developers are having very long leases so that people have got, 999. That's right, yeah. But you actually want a lease well above, I'd say, 80 plus. You don't want anything that's too risky in terms of leases. And just an important point that you mentioned, interestingly, when I got to Spain, I realised that apartments, with an apartment in Spain, you own a share of the freehold. So you don't have the whole leasehold malarkey in Spain. You own a share of the freehold with every property you get. If you buy a property, if you buy an apartment, you own a share of the freehold. So we don't have that issue in Spain.
Okay. Now, just to say on top of that, in relation to the 999-year lease, in as much as probably, as far as leaseholds are concerned, it's probably the best that you can get. But the matter is, if you are passing that property down one day, the freeholder is going to come and knock on somebody's door and say, your lease is ended. It might not be until about 3 or 4 generations, but they will do that at some point, except you extend it again. So yes, okay. So it's not as long as it's long, but it's not the same. It's not equivalent to a freehold. Okay, so the value of property ownership should not be underestimated. Because you own the property, you can pretty much do what you want with it without getting consent from a landlord, which you would need to do if you were renting property. More importantly, you can do things to it that make it go up in value. Something as simple as painting it can increase the value, which translates into profit. And if you keep up your payments, it can also greatly increase your credit rating. Right, now Bimba, could you tell us what is the importance, first of all, what is credit rating? And what is the importance of keeping up your mortgage payments in relation to your credit rating?
Right. Okay. So credit is credit. I'm laughing because this is a topic that I feel like it's not really understood by a lot of people. Hence why sometimes we don't, because we don't know the importance of credit. We're not too good at it within the community. But basically, in a certain societies, especially the Western societies, where credit is such a big deal, and your credit rating or your credit is basically your track record with financial institutions and how well you are good with paying back